And we're continuing to cover the aftermath of the grand jury decision not to bring charges against two Louisville police officers involved in the deadly shooting of Breonna Taylor over 6 months ago. Here are just some of the many scenes that played out across cities nationwide last night. Each of these cities has had its own high-profile police killing, making national headlines before Eric Gardner and Aaron Campbell. And now protesters are demanding justice in Breonna Taylor's case as the FBI continues to investigate her death. So with me now for a closer look at these protests is Asha Castleberry. She's a national security expert and a U.S. Army combat veteran. All right, Asha, let's start with the governor sending 500 National Guard troops to Louisville yesterday. We saw similar situations across the country over the summer as protests ramped up, and we saw buildings destroyed, we saw fires, and we saw shootings at times. Could you just talk to us a little bit more about the role of the National Guard? Critics say that they're supposed to be there perhaps to protect property, but that is not what is happening. What can you tell us about this type of response, and what's the purpose?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. Well, pretty much the purpose of the National Guard is to prop up or support the local police. And here in this case, in Kentucky, we have here the Kentucky National Guard supporting the Louisville Metro Police Department, which was, in their eyes, needed because they were not too strong enough to take on the protesters. And we're hoping in this situation that they're carrying out a de-escalation operation where they're doing a good job as far as trying to de-escalate the situation. But apparently that is questionable. We did see that there were 2 police officers shot yesterday, as well as that there's militias now being taken part or intertwined among the protesters who are instigating violence. So, the situation does look quite concerning in terms of carrying out and moving forward. I think there will be more protests because, again, the protesters are not too pleased as far as what came out with the grand jury announcement yesterday. And the situation is still concerning for quite some time, and especially with the fact that it's been over 190 days that the state of Kentucky took a while to investigate the situation, and we're not too pleased with the responses. Mm-hmm.
So, as you say, we saw tensions reach a breaking point last night after 2 officers were shot during the protests in Louisville. That is something that we have not seen during protests this summer. What does the escalation tell us about the emotional status of the protesters and their views of police officers? And we don't know the details yet as to, there's a suspect in custody. So the details are sort of still coming into us. But that is something that we have not yet seen in other protests.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, protesters are allowed to protest peacefully, but at the same time, there should be no violence. We should condone violence in this situation. And what does that tell us in terms of police officers being shot? That definitely tells us that this is bad policing, as well as distrust between the community and the police. So there's definitely needs some more improvements in terms of community build-up between the community as well as police. There needs to be police reform as far as trying to address the situation. So when a situation like this flares up, we know how to address civil unrest.
Right, but Asha, just to put a finer point on it, I mean, and I hear what you're saying, but peacefully protesting and demanding an end to police brutality should not ever involve somebody firing a weapon at a law enforcement officer, because they are there oftentimes to ensure people can exercise their constitutional right to peacefully assemble and to protest.
Yes, I agree. We should not fire a firearm at a police officer. That is unlawful in this country, and it does create some sort of escalation moving forward. But it's also a reflection of the distrust between the protesters as well as the police officers. So the police officers have to get with the protesters, the leaders of the people that actually organize this protest, and be able to figure out how can we peacefully address this situation, because we don't want no more police officers shot, because all it's going to do is deepen the distrust and escalate into something that can be very unfortunate for the entire community, especially in Louisville.
Asha, this summer and over this year, we've really seen the impact of racism in a number of different ways, and it's not sort of something that's brand new, but certainly within the criminal justice system, its impact on the health and welfare of minorities, Black and brown people. I'm wondering if it is time, in your opinion, for lawmakers, elected officials, to not just view racism as a social ill, if you will, but also a domestic threat and address it in that way.
Oh, I would frame it as possibly a national security threat. I've been saying this for quite some time within the last year or two, that racism is a national security threat. And to the point where this is even a discussion in the international community at places like the United Nations, where racism is a destabilizer. And this is why justice is so important, and it needs to be carried out through law, through, with our relationship with the police. We need better police reform. Racism, all it does is create division, creates tension. But unfortunately, this country was built on racism for 400 years. So we have systemic racism that is becoming more complex, harder to resolve. And evidently, looking at what's going on right now, we're struggling as a nation to address systemic racism. So we need to get together as far as trying to create solutions, better policies that does address systemic racism, because racism will continue to divide this country.
All right, Asha Castleberry, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.